Hello and welcome. You're watching the top Jewish news channel. My name is Michael Vילενσκי, and my guest today is Josh Reinstein, the president of the Israel Alliance Foundation. Josh, great to have you.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Josh, so our first question to you will be about Israel's support in the US. That's something that you constantly deal with. And I want to ask you about the Generation Z. So we see that in general the American population supports Israel, but some polls have shown that the Generation Z is like split on the question whether to support Israel or Hamas. It's like 50-50. It's like a coin toss situation. Why is the Generation Z so disoriented? Why don't they understand that on one hand you have a state that wants to live a normal life, that wants to protect its citizens, and on the other hand you have a terrorist Islamist organization? What is the reason for that?
Well, there's three reasons, and as you said, the support for Israel is overwhelmingly strong in America. I think it's 80% support Israel, 20% Hamas. Yet there's a divergence when you look at the age group called Generation Z. There's three main reasons for that. Number one, it's the fact that that generation is the most secular generation in American history. A lot of people who support Israel because of the Bible, because of the fact that Israel is known as the chosen people, God's people, that they've seen the fulfillment of prophecy in Israel, and so people are excited about what God's doing in Israel. That generation is less connected to that narrative from the Bible or the Tanakh, and because of that, they see Israel as any other country. Now, there's two other factors. One is the penetration of the education system by radical elements, specifically Qatar. Qatar spends about $1 billion a year, and they buy different programs in universities. So a lot of the leading universities, you have foreign exchange students that are Arabs who are very anti-Israel. You have professors that are, quote, Palestinian professors that teach blood libel against Israel. So in the university campuses, they're being fed a full stream of anti-Israel hate and lies. And then the third thing that's probably the most destructive for this generation is TikTok. TikTok is a super weapon that was created by the Chinese government that constantly flashes images to people, and they get excited. It gives them dopamine levels higher in their mind, so people get addicted to TikTok, and then they come up with these crazy ideas. So you have a situation where people are now supportive of Osama bin Laden in America because what they do is on TikTok constantly show that Osama bin Laden is good, that he's for the disadvantage. So you can basically change the narrative in people's minds by shooting these images on TikTok constantly. So these three factors has made Generation Z very antagonistic to Israel, and it's very important for Israel to understand where it's coming from and how to combat that.
So since Israel, became a country, right? America and Israel have been friends in some way or another, have been very allied countries. Do you think that the fact that Generation Z switches its stance on Israel and becomes more anti-Israel than the generations before it, does it endanger Israel's support in America?
Well, I think at this point it hasn't yet. Israel and America are the only two countries in the world founded on Judeo-Christian principles and values, and because of that, we have a special relationship. That's why America and Israel always refer to each other as its greatest allies and friends. And the people respond to that. I think also that once Generation Z comes out of the bubble of social media and education and comes into the real world as they get older and they understand what's going on, then a lot of these crazy ideologies, they go to the wayside. So I don't think that in the near future we have a problem with support for America. But of course, if these trends continue for generation after generation, then it can have a huge effect on the Israel U.S. relationship.
So how can you talk, if you're an Israel supporter, how can you talk to the Generation Z and make it more pro-Israel? And is it anything that can even change? Can you do anything about it?
Well, I think that the real problem is that America needs to enforce more regulation and its laws that are existing on files. For example, you can't just get foreign money from governments for your universities without um, telling the government about it. These are things that there are regulations are. It's just not being enforced. I think the problem is a lot more deeper than we're talking about it today, because the problem isn't just for Israel, it's for America. If the young generation in America hates America and is supportive of radical Islam, that is a national security issue for America. And I think that a lot of people are raising the alarms today about that. And so we see in the streets today that you have hundreds of thousands of people with Hamas flags, with Nazi flags walking through the streets. I think people are beginning to wake up, not just in America, but in Europe, at the threat of what's happening with this new form of ideological brainwashing.
I think that America is in a way in a very precarious situation because America, makes a big deal out of freedom of speech, and in that case, it cannot really enforce laws that will limit free speech and limit anti-Semites' freedom of speech against Israel and against America, as you just said. Don't you think that in that kind of situation, it will be very hard for America to maneuver and on one hand keep its principles and stay America, the America of the freedom of speech, but on the other hand, combat its national security danger, as you just said?
Well, I think that the freedom of speech in America has been selective. You can't say these things against any other minority on university campuses that you say against Jews. If you just replace the word Jews and put any minority there, whether it be Hispanic, Black, women, you would be immediately expelled and kicked off of campus. So it's how they apply the freedom of speech method that's important. Look, if America wanted to stop this, they could. They could ban TikTok. They could ban foreign money going into universities. And then they can enforce hate speech laws that are already on the books. It would be a very easy fix. The question is, why aren't they doing it?
Josh Reinstein, the president of the Israel Allies Foundation, thank you very much for your interview and for your insight on the Christian support for Israel. Thank you again. Thank you also to all of our viewers that saw this interview. Please don't forget to subscribe to us on all of our social media platforms. Thank you again and have a great day.